all 0, 0. I hope so. Because I plan to come back for the 50th. And we're going to have to wheel Tom in. So we said, how can we make a leapfrog move in the distance education business? And we did it by creating this vision of a distance campus where you could take lectures at a distance, you could participate in breakout sessions at a distance, you could see, because there was no way to conveniently lecture at a distance. There was no way to do breakout sessions at a distance. It's hard to imagine that in 1995, theses and journals were not online. You still had to go to the physical library and take out a paper copy of a 1995 thesis. So we said to the MIT faculty, when we proposed SDM, it was the first time a motion had gone before the MIT faculty to give degree credit to an online course, to a digitally distance presented course. We created that precedent. And the way we did it is we said, we're going to create this vision of an online campus, not only online lectures, online recitations, online office hours, online projects, online documents. And it captivated the faculty. Now, we delivered almost none of that. Because it took about 20 years for the technology to capture. And if you think of that list that to catch up with reality, if you think of that list that I just ran through, much of it has appeared in the last 2 years as a result of COVID and Zoom. The idea of online lectures conveniently, online recitations, online breakout groups. You couldn't do that even as little as 5 or 10 years ago.
So one thing, a couple aspects about the online. One is it's good for people in industry who can't always spend a year or 2 years at a university. So it's good for them. It also helps the faculty because when you're creating, developing courses online, you can't go in as much detail. You've got to have slides that people can read and these type of things. And so it actually helps the faculty understand exactly what they want to communicate in their lectures and how they want to communicate them. So faculty actually, many of them have told us that they become better teachers as a result of this. So it helps both the consumers and it helps the delivers.
And I remember when Tom and I went to the meeting of the MIT faculty to present the SDM program and get permission, change the rules of the faculty to allow online education. We made this argument very persuasively, but we also said, and we're going to beat Stanford. And it passed.
So I think one of the other things that was not necessarily different, but was really a founding principle of the SDM program was this partnership with industry. And if you can talk a little bit about the early model for company sponsorship and kind of who those companies were. And I do know that you had gone through the founding, Tom, with the LFM program, and it was a little different here. So if you can talk a little bit about how SDM thought about companies and company sponsorship.
Yeah, it was different. So for LFM, companies put up lots of money for endowments and they created a big endowment. We didn't do that for SDM. So as we said before, we talked to lots of companies. We asked them if they would be willing to support and send people to us. We also felt it was important for a program like this to be really engaged, not just with academia. Lots of great things happen at universities like MIT in terms of research and bringing that research, but we bring it to the marketplace. And so having the voice of the companies and customers, if you will, giving us input in terms of the program was really fundamental in terms of how we designed the program, but also as we delivered it. And over the years, as you've gone out and become illustrious practitioners, you've provided us feedback over the years as well. And this has enhanced the curriculum, it's enhanced our understanding of what we're doing, and it's provided us opportunities. Some companies send students and support them and provide support for them for their housing and for their tuition, et cetera, et cetera. Some people come when are funded by themselves. We have some companies that prefer the distance education component. Some would prefer the certificate program, which we've introduced as well. But this interaction with companies is really essential. I think it's essential actually for much of MIT, but it's certainly essential for a program like this.
So I think the last question, and I apologize, I've skipped around a little bit from what I prepped you on, but I think the other piece that has been fundamental to the founding of this program and has really today is one of the pieces that incoming students talk to is this value of engineering and management. You know, it's not just a management program embedded in engineering, but it really is a marriage between the engineering school and the management school. And can you talk a little bit about what was the thinking behind that at the time? Because a lot of programs do go through the engineering school with an engineering management degree.
Well, there's a little story I often tell. Some of you have probably heard it many times. There was this person hovering around in a hot air balloon and got lost in this hot air balloon. And he sees somebody down below and he says, "Below down there." He says, "Can you tell me where I am?" And the guy down below says, "You're in a hot air balloon 100 feet above the ground." And the guy in the balloon on top says, "Well, you must be an engineer." He says, "My gosh, I am. How do you know?" He says, "What you told me was technically correct, but of absolutely no value to anybody." All right. To which the guy down below says to the guy up above, he says, "You know, I can tell you what you are as well." He says, "You don't know where you are. You don't know where you're going. You're in the same place before we met." So he says, "It's now my fault. You must be a manager." All right. So we had historically had these views that these two communities were quite separate and quite disparate. And they had some love for each other, but lots of hate for each other in terms of these mental models. And we wanted to bring those together. We actually felt it was important to bring this sort of thinking of technology enhanced education that comes out of an engineering school and a more management oriented education that comes out of a management school. And to bring those together, I think helps us to create, if you think about leaders in technology areas should understand both of those. And so we tried to bring the two schools together to do that. We did that with LFM, we've done it with this. There are very few programs in the world that do this, that actually bring in a substantial way engineering and management schools together.
So I have the engineer's perspective of what the management professor just said. Is when we did this analysis for creating the curriculum, we dispelled a myth. And the myth was that you could take an education in engineering and staple it to an education in management and produce the leaders that the world needed. And the specific aspect of the myth is there is not an overlap between those two lists. There's a gap. If you look at all the things that you need to successfully lead an engineering organization and then put up what engineering scientists teach in the School of Engineering and what management scientists teach in the School of Management, there's a gap. And that gap is filled by the 3 core courses we created. It's the fact that there is the management list plus the engineering list plus the gap filler of system architecture, system engineering, and system program management that provides the integrity and the completeness of the educational design.
And so one last thought about that. This is a comment that Ed made yesterday. We were talking that the nature of the curriculum has changed. There's been innovations in terms of the curriculum. We're going to be talking about that later today. But in essence, the substance of it and the substance that we had in mind when we started the program is basically the same as it was 25 years ago. And well, people will talk about that during the today. We probably deliver it in a better way. It's probably enhanced in a variety of ways. But the actual content that it has is pretty much, I think, what we had envisioned 25 years ago.
So we have about 5 minutes remaining, and I want to give an opportunity. I look through the audience here, and I know there's people in the first class, in the first cohort, and there's current students. And so you've had a little bit of a different view of the program, I think, over time. Are there questions you have for Tom and Ed that kind of date back to not only the founding, but Ed's been involved in the curriculum from the beginning. And I know, Naomi, you have the ability to pull questions from chat. So if there's anything, please feel free. Yes.
I'm from SDM 99. And when we look at our pie, during the experimental time, the core course was the worst. Then last night, when we talk to a current student and recent student, their favorite course are the core course. So what's happened during this period? It was changed from the worst course and got the most favorite course today.
So I'm going to repeat that actually, just so that people online can hear that question. And this was a gentleman who was from the class of 99. And he said, when we went through, the core course was the worst course that we took. And now I talk to students and the students talk about the core course being the best course. What happened?
Continuous process improvement. It's true. You know, we're engineers and managers, and we're applying the tools of engineering and management to the design of this educational offering. And about every other year or every third year, we do a fairly major review of some sort or another, some nature or another. Are we tracking it? Should we put a case in this? Should we take this model out? Should we make a better connection to something? And, you know, it takes a while to start from a blank piece of paper and create a new graduate educational offering. How long do you think we've been refining the MBA?
But we also, as leaders for the program, we listen to students, we listen to what they say about the courses. We talk with the faculty in terms of what they're doing and try to help them improve the courses in a wide variety of ways. But this notion of continuous improvement is part of the fabric, I think, of being an educator.
One of my favorite country music songs is Always Be Humble and Kind. And I think that humility in teaching is an important attribute. It allows you to take on good advice. It's offered often by your students.
I've got a question. Do you mind coming up here?
Good morning. This is from Anando on Zoom. Are there domains that you thought about 25 years ago that SDM would operate that have come true? What domains will SDM apply, do you think, in the next 25 years?
We're going to teach engineering and management education through SPACs. We're going to award the degree and then define. I'm just kidding.
So there was
that was to give my colleague Tom time to cover.
Well, here's a bit of a cover. I'm not sure it's a cover. So I think at about the year 2000, the National Academy of Engineering created the 20 best engineering achievements of the last century. And these were things like automobiles, airplanes, great achievements for those. And when I was in some of these roles, Dean of Engineering and President of this university, people would ask, well, what's going to be the ones in the next 100 years? And I said, I have no idea what they're going to be, but there's going to be a list. There's going to be 20 items on that list, and they're going to be as exciting as the ones we had in the last 100 years. We continue to innovate in a wide variety of ways. The world has changed. When I came to MIT, there were no computers. There were rotary dial phones. There were no Xerox machines. We used to do notes on a mimeograph machine and run a mimeograph machine like that. The world has changed drastically over that period of time, and it will change drastically over the next 25 years as well. And there's going to be many innovations that are going to surprise us at no end. We just don't know what they're going to be.
And not to put too much pressure on Professor Eppinger, but he's leading a panel this afternoon that's goal is to think a little bit about where the future is
yes.
in engineering management and systems education. Tom and Ed, thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for kind of giving us the foundation for this program that I inherited, and it's an amazing testament to the creativity, to the innovation, and really thinking outside the box to deliver world-class education. So thank you so much, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Pleasure to be with you.